of Shvat, which began only 2 days ago. Today was actually the 3rd of Shvat, and we are very excited to start class again and to learn about these wonderful insights, and especially of this week's Parsha. So as you know, the Parsha of the week is a very beautiful Parsha, especially that when you study this week's Parsha, you feel very much connected to the upcoming holiday, the holiday of Passover. When you learn this week's Parsha about the Paschal sacrifice and the matzah and the maror and all what the Parsha entails, you feel like, you start, in a sense, smelling already the Passover Seder, the fish, the soup, the knedlach, the noodles, the kugel, whatever good food comes on Pesach, you have a chance to smell it already in the Parsha of the week, because this Parsha is all about the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And obviously, being that this is the story of the Seder, of the Passover Seder night, so you can imagine that this Parsha has so much commentary and insight and different ideas, because the Seder night is one of the most celebrated and most discussed holidays. That's the whole idea of the Seder, is to share insights, to talk to each other, and to explain and to elaborate regarding the story of the Exodus. This is the mitzvah of Pesach. The mitzvah of Pesach is to relay the story. Veigadet lebincha, you should tell to your children, and to discuss the story of Pesach, the story of the Exodus. So you can imagine how many insights and wonderful explanations and commentary was shared and distributed and contributed in this week's wonderful Parsha. I would like to speak about 2 points, concentrating on 2 points, and one of them, and they're actually related to one to the other. Point number 1 is the first commandment that we are given in Egypt, which basically means the first commandment that we have as a people, not only as individuals. Yes, there were commandments which were given to Abraham to perform circumcision. There was commandments given to Isaac and to Jacob, but all of them were more very individual, but not as a people, as a nation. And the first mitzvah, which we have actually as a people of Israel, is the commandment in this week's Parsha. While being in Egypt, God tells Moses to establish this month, the month of the Exodus, as month number 1 and the end of the months for you. As the verse says, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chadashim. This month shall be for you the end of the months. Rishon Hu Lachem. This should be the first month for you. Lechatshei Hashana, for the months of the year. Which means until this point, there was no month number 1. Maybe there was month number 1, which whatever month number 1 was considered by the rest of the world. Maybe it was like what we call January today as month number 1. This was also month number 1 for the Israelites. But now that we are about to leave Egypt, God says, I want you to keep your own calendar. You are going to actually become different from this moment on. Not only are you going to be different with your observances, with your religious activities, you Jews are going to have your own special, unique calendar, which that calendar is counting the month of the Exodus as month number 1, and the month after the Exodus as month number 2. And that's how it continues throughout the Torah from this Parsha onward, that the months and the various activities and experiences and responsibilities which are to take place in a certain month, each month is counted as a number, starting with the month of the Exodus being month number 1. Matter of fact, there was no names for the months, and there is no names for the month in the entire Torah, which we call in the Bible. You're not going to find a name for a Jewish month. You're only going to find a number. As our sages actually tell us in the Talmud, that the names of the months, those assigned names that you find today on the Jewish calendar, for example, if you open your Jewish calendar, you're going to see that we just began this week on Monday was the first day of the month of Shvat, S-H-V-A-T, Shvat. Shvat is not a Hebrew word. Shvat is not a Hebrew name. Shvat is a name which was brought by the Jews once they came up from Babylonia after their exile in Babylon. They at that point assigned names which mostly are Babylonian names to the months. And for some reason, this month, which in the Torah, this month is mentioned as month number 11. As month number 11, because it's the 11th month from Nisan, from the Exodus. And it's not called the month of Shvat. So this is the Jewish calendar, which is also known as the lunar calendar, because which day of the month defines as being day number 1 is the appearance of the new moon. The moon circles around a little over 29 and a half days every month, and the disappearance of the moon marks the end of the month, and the reappearance of the new moon marks the beginning of the new month. So the new moon of this month reappeared exactly 2 days ago, and therefore 2 days ago on early Monday morning it was Rosh Chodesh, and today, which is on Wednesday, we are the 3rd day of this new month. So I'm sure everybody knows and studied, and we spoke about it throughout the years, what is the uniqueness of a lunar calendar versus a solar calendar. The regular calendar, which you are just taking the 365 days and sliding it into 12 parts. And this is not which I would like to discuss tonight. The one point that we do want to discuss tonight is what is the idea and why is it, if we can use some thinking, why is it that this is actually the first commandment as becoming a nation? Before even telling us what we should prepare for the night of the Seder that we're going to learn soon, and before we are being given the 10 Commandments, which was given, matter of fact, 7 weeks later after the Exodus, the first thing God tells Moses is to announce that this month is going to be the first month, and that a month should be counted by the appearance of the new moon. That's what actually is the reason why a month in Hebrew is called Chodesh, or the head of the month is called Rosh Chodesh. Chodesh in Hebrew shares the same root as Chadash, Chet Dalet Shin, because it's a new moon. It's a new appearance of a moon. It's a new birth of a moon. And that which makes this month, in the beginning of the month, new versus the previous month, and so on. Why is it this month? Why is it this mitzvah that makes Jews so unique? And why is it the first mitzvah? So there is various insights into it. And I will share for a moment what it's brought down in Hasidic philosophy. Hasidus says that the whole idea of feeling renewed versus status quo versus just going on with the same previous established ongoing program is what Judaism is all about. In other words, it goes back to our basic belief in how God created the world. The Jewish belief of creation, as being very much explained and expanded upon in Hasidic philosophy, is that the world was created by God in such a way that every single moment of creation gets renewed. The famous classic philosophical discussion is found in the section of Tanya, written by the Alter Rebbe Reb Shneir Zalman of Ladi. The section is called Shar HaYichud VeHaEmunah, which the Alter Rebbe elaborates in a very profound philosophical, deep explanation how the phenomenon of creation is not like a craftsman who takes a pre-existing material and forms it into an object, which at that point, the relationship from the craftsman to the new object is literally just configuring or developing that same pre-existed object into something else, like a bench, like a table, taking pre-existed wood and attributing a certain purpose to it. And if that's what it's all about, the master of that piece does not need to be involved in the object he had developed. You can take a piece of wood and make a chair or table out of it, and you let the table be on its own, the chair standing on its own, to a point that you might not even be familiar who made that table, who is the manufacturer, who is the developer, who formed it, because really a table out of wood is not a creation. It's not a creation. It is just a development of a pre-existing item, changing its course, reframing it into a new type of purpose, perhaps, that this object is going to serve. The concept of creation is a whole different philosophy. The Alter Rebbe explained that concept of creation means that something was created of nothing. Our world is a new phenomenon. Our world never existed before God created our world. And the relationship of the creator to the creation is in a way that the world gets recreated on every given moment in every single day. You can't create something new out of nothing and let it run on its own. You can take a piece of wood, which is already created, and form it to a chair and let the chair exist on its own. But you cannot take something which never existed before, something out of nothing, and have that something run on its own strength. Rather, you must have an ongoing recreation of the same object again and again and again, which, as the Alter Rebbe explains, it is the energy which brought about creation. It's the spiritual energy that God used by creating something, which made that creation into being, and that creation is to re-come into being every single moment. This is a basic philosophical but very fundamental idea discussed in Hasidic philosophy. Now, the idea is not only a philosophical idea, it's a very inspirational concept. Why? Because for a person to know that this moment which exists now did not exist a moment earlier, and it's might not going to exist a moment later. Today is the day, and today's day was not yesterday, and today's day is not tomorrow, is not only philosophically sensible, and it's very personal, inspirational, knowing that it doesn't matter what took place yesterday. Today, I can still make it the best day of my life, because today is a complete new day. Today is a fresh day. Today is a day which has nothing to do with what happened before. I can declare this day to be that day and utilize the day in the best way possible. For some people, actually live with this philosophy, and it becomes the reality of their life. I once listened to a talk, a Farbrengen of the Rebbe. Actually, it was in this week, the month of Shvat. As you know, that the 10th of Shvat is the Yortzeit, the anniversary of passing of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who passed away in 1950, the 10th of Shvat in New York. After 10 years earlier, he came back from Russia, from Poland. And our Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, assumed the leadership of the movement at the 10th of Shvat. And Hasidim used to come to the Rebbe many times at the 10th of Shvat to be together and to Farbrengen in honor of that Yortzeit. This story, which I'm sharing with you, happened in 1972. I'm sorry, 1970. 1970 was 30 years, well, sorry, it was 20 years since the passing of the previous Rebbe. There was a new Torah which started to be written by the previous Rebbe before his passing, was actually completed 20 years later in honor of his 20th Yortzeit, the 10th of Shvat. And there were guests who came from all over the world, including a group which came specially chartered by El Al to come to spend the 10th of Shvat by the Rebbe. They had a nice Shabbos. They welcomed the new Torah on Friday before Shabbos. And now it's after Shabbos, and they are about to get ready to go back to Kennedy Airport to fly back home to Israel. And the Rebbe decides that he's going to Farbrengen. There's going to be a Farbrengen. A Farbrengen means the Rebbe is going to come down and talk about insights into the holiday, into the Parsha, and so on and on. And they're all looking on their clocks, and they realized that this is, the clock shows that we are late to the airport. And they're sitting all, as they say in Yiddish, they are sitting on spilkes. Sitting on spilkes mean you sit on needles, because you don't know, the flight, what's going to happen. And the Rebbe talks and talks. And then the Rebbe said the following: Hasidim, who believe in the program and in the idea that the world gets created every second, fresh and new, it means that the El Al flight doesn't even exist yet. And the pilot doesn't even exist yet. And the airport is not even in existence. At this moment, there's absolutely nothing going on except this moment. So what are you sitting on shpilkas? What are you so worried about? What's going to happen in an hour from now? Let's wait and see. The idea that, that you are viewing time in a perspective that this is it. This is the moment. Or if you want to be a little more, practically minded about it, today is the day, or at least this week in the week. Instead of putting it all into one packle, into one package, and keep on thinking that it's all there together, and as they say, all tsumished, all confused. And if yesterday was a bad day, tomorrow is for sure going to be a bad day. And the day after, who knows where we're going to go with this Omricon, with who knows what. Today, you woke up, you say, Moide Anila Fanecho, I thank you, Hashem, that you're giving back in the Neshama, and let's grab the moment. So this idea is really what Rosh Chodesh means. Rosh Chodesh means renewed. Rosh Chodesh means refreshed. Rosh Chodesh means you don't keep still and are neutral today with yesterday and this hour with the previous hour. Chodesh means to constantly be excited that now I have a new day. Now I have a new moment. Now it is Chadash. Now it's fresh. And Hasidism, the Baal Shem Tov in his teachings, placed a tremendous emphasis on the idea of people to refresh themselves constantly and to feel that this opportunity is the opportunity that I'm here to grasp and to attach myself and to keep strong with for as long as I can. And this explains why Rosh Chodesh is actually the first mitzvah. There is actually a very beautiful insight given in the name of the great Hasidic master, Reb Levi Yitzchak of Bardichev, known as the Rebbe of Bardichev, who was one of the disciples of the Maggid and a colleague of the Alter Rebbe Reb Shneur Zalman from the early Hasidic masters. He has a book, a small book on Hasidism called Gdushas Levi. And he speaks about a very beautiful verse, which is actually recited on a very sad night called Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which is the national day of mourning, when we sit on the floor and we cry and mourn about the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. The tradition is to read the book of Eicha, known as the book of Lamentation, which traditionally was written by Yirmiyahu Hanavi, Jeremiah the prophet, who had witnessed the tragedy of the destruction of the temple. So those who were in synagogue on Tisha B'Av, you noticed that usually the chazan, the cantor, the rabbi, whoever, reads out the entire Eicho loudly with a special melody, feeding the sadness of the day. Eicha yashva badad, ohi rabba siyam, oisa ke'almano. How Jerusalem is sitting so isolated, like a widow. This is at the Eicha begins. But then it comes to the end of Eicha. The last verse, the entire congregation reads out loudly together, which it reads as follows. Ashiveinu Hashem Eilecha Venoshuvo Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Ashiveinu Hashem Eilecha. We ask, O God, our Lord, return us to you, Venoshuva, so we will come home. Chadesh Yameinu, please renew our days, Kekedem, like the days before, like in the past, like in the beginning. That verse is read twice. And this is how it goes. You look in the book of Lamentations, you can see it. It goes like this. First, there is a verse which says, Ki im mo'ois mohastonu kotzafto leinu ad me'oi. Since you, God, you were really disgusted by us and you were angered on us. And everybody says together again, Hashiveinu, Hashem Eilecha Venoshuva. God, return us to you and we will come home. Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Refresh our days like in the beginning. What is the conversation? Why is everybody saying it together? Says the holy Rabbi of Berditchev, he says as follows. Golus, exile, the fact that we were scattered and dispersed from our holy land and the temple was destroyed, this is the kind of a state of divorce. God really divorced us when he allowed us into exile. At that point, we are considered like husband and wife who were married together for a number of years, and the shidduch, the marriage somehow did not work out, and there is an option. It's not a favorable option, it's not a first option, but there is an option called divorce. And God had enough, and he said, okay, let's make a get, let's separate, let's get divorced from each other. No, what happens once you divorce your wife? Can you take her back after divorce? Can you remarry her? So Jewish law says that it really depends. First of all, according to the Torah, that's very clear. If the wife goes and marries another guy, she can never go back to her first husband. This is in the Torah. This is in the Bible. But let's say the woman never got married. And then she's alone, he's alone, and the husband says, you know what, I had enough being alone, I'm going back and trying to remarry my previous wife. Is he allowed to do it or not? So in Halacha it says that it depends really why he divorced her. If the divorce was because she behaved unfaithful to him, and he wasn't allowed to live with her because she was with another man while they were married, so then he can never take her back. That marriage is done and over, no chance for reunion. But if he divorced his wife, like some of the divorces happens, he just was not in the mood to her anymore. Must speak, he had enough. He didn't like the way she was cooking. He didn't like the way she was baking. He did not like the way whatever, she got on his nerves. She talked too much. She talked too little. Who knows, whatever the reason is. And that's why they got divorced. Then, if he decides to remarry her after the divorce, he can still do it. Not only can do it, it's a shtickle mitzvah to bring back you divorcee and to get remarried. He's going to have a full new wedding with witnesses, with a marriage band, etc., etc. But it's okay. And not only it's okay, it's even suggested. So says the holy Rebbe Berditchev, this is what Jeremiah the prophet tells over here to God. He asks God, Hashiveinu Hashem Eilecha Venoshuvo. God, return us. Let's get remarried again. Let's come home. Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Let's refresh and renew our days like in the beginning. says the next verse. Because the reason that you divorced us is not that we weren't faithful to you. Rather, ki ima'ois mo'astonu. You were just disgusted by us. Our behavior was not the right behavior. We could have done much better. And you had enough. You had enough. You were angry. You were very angry on us. If that's the reason, so then obviously you can take us back. So the whole congregation declares again a second time. Return us to God. Let's refresh our days like the way it was in the past. And this is really the idea which the Badichver is teaching us, that there is no such a thing as being completely detached. The idea is that we have to keep on refreshing our relationship. And when you refresh your relationship, when you announce Rosh Chodesh, it's a new month, then you are able to stabilize your relationship, whether it's with God, obviously, and the same thing is also in our personal relationships with each other. The importance of not letting things get stuck and, God forbid, become kind of icy. You know, ice, it doesn't go anywhere. This week we all saw ice on the roads, and we saw ice on the streets, and everywhere you go there is ice. And what's the idea of ice? Ice is standing still, nothing gets refreshed. You put in a fire, and the fire keeps on rising and growing and expanding. And that's what this mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh is. And that's why it's the first mitzvah, because this is what defines us as a Jew, and that's what defines us as a believer in God, to do the way He does things. God keeps on refreshing, keeps on renewing. We have to find ways how to renew and to refresh our existence. So this is point one. But before I continue to point two, you can join me with a hot tea, everybody, wherever you are. Let's make a bracha, and I'm going to drink some hot tea, okay? It's probably not so hot anymore. It's already a half hour since I put it or more. But let's make a bracha. Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakolim yeh b'dvorih.
Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Have some tea, Yitzchak. It's good for you. Arnold, a glass of the tea. A glass of the tea. What are you scared? You're going to have to get up in the middle of the night? You're never going to get up. No, have a little tea. Come on. If you never get up because you had a tea.
She forgot to prepare.
Okay. Someone is advocating for you. Thank you, Svetlana. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Give me 1 more minute. I finish the tea. So we're not going to have to make another break. Just a minute.
Okay.
It doesn't end. What kind of cup is it? Okay.
I like your big size.
Remind me your next birthday to buy you a cup like this.
Yeah.
Now, when you finish drinking, you make a efta bracha. Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, boire nefoshes rabot v'chesroid narakom asher baras alachim kochoi, baruch hei oilamim. Okay.
Amen.
Now let's go back. A similar discussion is in the Parsha is as follows. We know that in general, the whole idea of Pesach. Pesach means skipping over, jumping over, rushing over. And here we find something very interesting, but I want to talk a little bit about, is it valuable to rush? Or as Arnold always says, slowly, slowly. You ever hear him saying it? Slowly, slowly. You know, take your time. And he has a lot of plans. Baruch Hashem is going very slow. But there is really, in one end, we find in the Torah, I want to talk from a Torah perspective, we find that the idea of rushing things is not only not important, but unnecessary, but even admonished. The famous story that we have in the last Chumash in Bereshit was about Reuven. Reuven was the firstborn of the 12 tribes of Jacob. And yet, he rushed. He rushed. He was supposed to be the head of the tribes, and he lost his position for his fourth brother, the fifth brother, which came after him, the fourth brother, which his name was Yehuda. And why did he lost it? Because he was somehow angry about the situation of whatever happened with his mother and with Rachel. And Yaakov's bed was in Rachel's tent. Yaakov, remember, had two wives, Rachel and Leah. And the bed was in Rachel's tent, and he somehow didn't understand what's going on. He didn't like the whole situation. And instead of discussing it first and trying to figure out what happened, he rushed and he removed the bed from Rachel's tent to his mother Leah to make sure that Yaakov does not stay in the tent and does not live together with the midwife of Rachel, which his name was Bila. And as we read in Parshas Vayechi, that his father actually admonished them. And the words that he uses in the admonishments, when he admonishes his older son Reuven, he says the words, Pachas kamayim. You rushed like water. What were you rushing? To get involved in something that you didn't know all the details, right? Remember those two words? Pachas kamayim. You rushed. You lost everything. You lost your first right. You lost your first birthright. Everything because you rushed to express your anger. Pachas kamayim. Matter of fact, there's a beautiful verse in Proverbs, Mishlei. King Solomon writes in Proverbs, chapter 19, verse 2. He says like this, Gam belo da'at nefesh lo tov, ve'atz beraglaim chote. He says, a person, a nefesh who is without da'at, without soul, meaning without wisdom, lo tov, this is not good. If you have no wisdom, if you don't acquire knowledge, you're going to end up in sin. But then he says, Atz beraglaim, the one who rushes with his feet, chote, he's a sinner. You're going to go quick, you're going to end up in trouble. Don't run. And here comes a question, which this question is being also raised by many of the commentators in regard to the story of this week's Parsha, the story of the Exodus. Somehow, the whole atmosphere around the Exodus was all an atmosphere of rushing, doing things quick. God tells the Jewish people to get out of Egypt, somehow appear as if you are being run after. Run. What does the Parsha tell us in chapter 12 of this week's Parsha? Chapter 12, verse 11. He tells them, I want you to eat tonight, the night of the Exodus. You're going to eat the Paschal lamb. So it says, V'kacha tochlu oto. This is how you should eat it. Make sure that you have your belt around your waist. Make sure that you wear your shoes. Hold a cane in your hand. ואכלתם אותו בחיפזון. You should eat it with hasteness. Don't just sit down with a fork and spoon and knife at a plate. Take off your shoes, undo your belt, enjoy a beautiful dinner that you are going to have. Baruch Hashem, after many years of slavery, you are about to go out. No. Keep your shoes on. Keep your cane in your hand. You're rushing. Don't change to light clothes. Don't change by removing your shoes. Hello. It's like, you take a sandwich. I'm running to the airport because in another minute I might lose my flight, and you're rushing, but you didn't eat anything. So you're hopping around very quickly. A quick piece of bread, a piece of cheese into your mouth, you go. This is exactly how we were told we should eat the Paschal sacrifice on the night of Pesach. And not only that, the next story, they bake the dough and no chance for it to become bread. Why? Running, right? That's how the matzah became matzah, because we had no chance to sit down, slowly wait for the dough to rise, let it become, you don't want it to become a sour bread, takes a longer time, let it become regular bread. No, everything is rush. Okay, no bread, it becomes matzah. Matter of fact, many communities start their Agada Seder with this story. They say, Behilu yatzanu mimitzrayim. Behilu means what? Mit rush, mit hasteness, is me left Egypt. And the question is, what are they rushing? No one is running after them. No one is running after them. After the midnight, they were sitting and they were not rushing out. Right after midnight, they rushed out. No, they left actually next morning. As the verse says, Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Right? And the funny thing is that later, when you celebrate Pesach in the temple or Jerusalem, you're not supposed to eat it in a rushing way. It's only the first Pesach was somehow the mitzvah was to rush. Later, once you get into the land, you have a whole meal. At the end of the meal for dessert, you have a piece of meat, and you sit calmly with your family, with the group which was designated for you, and that's how you celebrate Pesach. What is it about the first Pesach that it was so important? It seems like it's a part of the story, right? A part of the story is that the idea is me rush. What's the rush? I shared with you a number of times, one of the so-called classic Hasidic stories. A couple who did not have kids for many years, they came to a Rebbe, and they asked the Rebbe for a bracha, and the Rebbe finally gave him the blessing, and he says, with Hashem's will, you are going to have a child very soon. And they got the blessing. They became very calm. From the Rebbe, they went straight to Toys R Us, and they got themselves a carriage and a betala, like a little crib for the baby. The Rebbe said they're going to have a baby, so what are we waiting for? Let's get the house ready. And they got everything prepared and everything ready for the baby to come. And lo and behold, 9 months later, the baby was born. Mazel tov, there's a baby. And when the Rebbe was told, You did a great miracle. You told someone they can have a baby 9 months earlier. You know what happened? They actually had a baby. The Rebbe said they didn't have the baby because of my blessing. They had the baby because when they heard it, I gave them a blessing. They had such a tremendous trust, bitachon, in Hashem and in the blessing that is going to give them the baby, that they went straight ahead and they acted on it. They went and they bought a crib and they bought a carriage. That's why Hashem said, okay, if they believe it's going to happen, it's coming along. And that's how they were blessed with their child. This is a story which I shared the story in many different occasions and so on. What's the idea of the story? The idea of the story is that they are sitting in Egypt and they are standing in their shoes with their belt on and the cane in their hand. They showing that we are 100% convinced that we are getting out of here. This is not a spiel. They are not rushing because they are frustrated and they can't wait to get out of there. They present themselves in a rush, showing that we are going because they were told they're going to go. Who knows how many things may change until you're actually going to go. Paro can suddenly open up his secret bunker and take out some hidden weapons and bring in the Secret Service and get Moses arrested. And there's going to be a whole finish to this whole plan, to this whole Exodus. It will all come to an end. The Jews behaved completely differently. They were told they are going, so they believed they are going, and they made themselves 100% presentable to the go. The gate. That was the rush. The rush was not because they were rushing, because they were afraid of something. They were rushing because they trusted and they knew that it's happening. And when you trust that something is happening, you put on your shoes and you get ready to go. Where are you going? You didn't hear there's flight cancellations and there's a snowstorm. Where are you going? You're not going to make it anyway. I'm telling you, I'm making it. I know I'm making it. And I'm going to the airport calmly and dressed, and I'm going to be there on time because I know that I am living. I know it's going to happen. This is called bitachon. This is actually which is wrote down in the Sforno. The Sforno is a famous Italian commentator, which is printed in many of the classic Chumashim. The Sforno says that the reason they were holding their cane in their hands is to show their unquestionable trust in God. While being home, we're already holding our cane in our hand because we know that we are about to go. This is called the trust which led to the redemption. The trust which led to the redemption. The Rebbe actually used sometimes the idea, there are certain letters from the Rebbe to people who are even dealing with a health condition. And the Rebbe expects from those people, he writes them clearly, you should be besimcha, you should behave joyfully, knowing that you will get recovered from this illness. It's not the joy which comes after recovery. It's a pre-recovery joy, the trust and faith that you will be getting back your health, and therefore you are ready to be joyful now. Imagine you have a prophet, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, they come and tell you, listen, you know what's going to happen? Today is Wednesday. You know what happens on Friday morning, 6 o'clock? This is prophecy. This is not Rabbi Farkash speaking. This is a prophet. You know what they tell you? Friday, 6 o'clock, Corona disappears as if it never existed. So tell me honestly, when you hear it from a prophet, wouldn't you turn on your music at home and take out a bottle and say L'chaim and take your wife or husband by your hand and start dancing? That the prophet says that on Friday, 6 o'clock, 2 years of misery is coming to an end? Or you would say, no, he said, nah. Yes, if you don't believe in Jeremiah, in Ezekiel, so then it's a cact, don't do anything. But somebody who believes in Moses, and Moses comes to your house, he knocks on his door, and he tells you, Friday, it's over. When would you dance? Friday or now, Wednesday night? Tell me. Arnold, when would you dance? Tonight? Go with your finger. Tonight or Friday? Tonight. Obviously tonight. Why? Because you heard it from Moses' mouth, who's telling you that this is happening on Friday. So why wait on Friday? You are dancing now, knowing that Friday it's going to be over. And you know by Friday, you're going to go try to get a bottle of kosher wine. There's not going to be any wine anywhere. Because by 7, but if it's over by 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, all the kosher wine is out in the city. And the Smirnoff and the vodka, you're not going to get anything. If you really believe that that's what's happening on Friday morning, you take your car, you go down to Casco now, and you make sure that you have enough to say L'chaim with your family and friends to celebrate such a victory. This is the truth. Says the Sforno, that's what Jews projected while being in Egypt, hearing from Moses that we are about to leave. The fact that they were rushing was not eating in a rushing way just because they're anxious and nervous and who knows, we gotta just eat whatever we can because who knows, we might go back to the darkness of the enslavement and who knows. They put on their shoes and they kept their canes and they made sure that the car is full of gas and they made sure that they have everything set up and ready to their big trip to the redemption. This only comes from a people who live with the concept of Chodesh, the idea that God creates every single moment and is responsible for how things will happen and should happen. And therefore, when you hear that there is an end to the trouble, you believe and you know that it's going to happen because nature is not dominating. There is somebody in charge. There is somebody in control. There is somebody who can tell you how things are going to happen, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So this is really the story of Pesach. Rushing is sometimes comes from negligence, from kind of, you're not organized, you're giving up, you're not interested into the details and you rush. That's not the rush that we are talking about. We're talking the rush which comes of refreshness, of a renewed dedication, a rush that comes with inspirational excitement that something new is happening, a new day starts, a new beginning, a new era. This is the rush. This is the excitement. This is the chidush. Interestingly, regarding the future redemption, it says in Tanakh, there's a verse which says that we are actually not going to rush. It's going to be very calm. You know that? There's a verse which says that you are going to walk out calmly from Golus. I'm going to find you the verse. I have it written down here. Where is that? No, I don't know what the verse is. Kiloi menusat elechun. You're not going to go by rush, but rather beshuvo benachat. Oh, yeah, The verse is in Isaiah, chapter 52, verse 12. It says, "Kiloi bechipozo in teitzeu." You're not going to leave exile in rush. Ube menuso loi telechu. You're not going to have to run. Rather, ki oilech lifneichem Hashem, because God is going with you. So this is already explained in Hasidic philosophy also, that by the time Mashiach comes, godliness is going to be such a part of our life that we're not going to even have to show that excitement. In other words, when is a person excited and running? When something is not really a part of him, he has to run somewhere. But when it's a part of yourself, then you can contain that excitement and you can walk towards it calmly and methodically, knowing that it's happening. At the time when Mashiach comes, we are going to be so prepared and so ready for his coming that we're going to walk to it in a very eternal excitement, not something which we have to express in the rush and in the run. But what we're learning in this parsha is that when it came to leave Mitzrayim, we did run because we were in ultimate excitement and believe that the time has come and we are ready to get out of this exile and ready to move on forward. And that was the rush. And this is really the lesson that we take from this week's parsha. What is the first mitzvah that a Jew is obligated? Remember, is Rosh Chodesh. The first mitzvah is to feel refreshed and renewed. You're going to sleep. You have in mind that tomorrow is going to be a whole new day and a whole refreshed morning with new ideas, with new opportunities. And I will try to do something tomorrow which I did not do today. Not because I didn't do today, I was for sure not to do it tomorrow. No, tomorrow is a new day, and I'm going to go sleep and get rejuvenated tonight so we can start fresh tomorrow. A new day, a new creation. Nothing else what happened till now matters. And that's how we're going to continue going with excitement and refreshment, with rejuvenation and haziness. I'm sure that we will accomplish a lot of good stuff and bring about the ultimate redemption even faster and sooner than the plan was. And we should marry to, just like we left Egypt at the time, to leave our own limitations and our own craziness very soon and to go greet Mashiach speedily in our day. Amen. As we say in the end of the Agada, Leshana Haba Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba Yerushalayim. Leshana Haba Yerushalayim, Lashana Haba Yerushalayim Abnuya. Come on, everyone. Lashana Haba Yerushalayim. Lashana Haba Yerushalayim. Lashana Haba Yerushalayim. Lashana Haba Yerushalayim Abnuya. Thank you, everyone. If you want to say something, unmute yourself. Say something good, but speak in English.
Yeah.
I understand you.
I'll say something bad, Rabbi.
Something bad?
No, I'm kidding.
God forbid. What can I bad?
No.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Spilkers in tuchas. Spilkers is not needles. It's splinters. Splinters.
I don't know. I will tell you, they both sound to me the same equally.
No.
I think that they are both in my tuchas. It makes me think about both of them as being something painful and disturbing.
Yeah, but spilkers is splinters.
No.
No.
God should save you from both of them. Any other good comment? I'm happy to hear that you listen to the class, Arnold.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Very
Thank you,
welcome.
so
Rabbi.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It
Thank
was
you,
very,
Anna.
very, very interesting and something new philosophy in a philosophic way, but very interesting.
Enjoy it. I promise you, I didn't make it up. It's all says in the holy books. I didn't make it up. What else? Anybody else wants to say something?
And speaking about Shpilka, this situation, we can understand like be in some place.
You started something tonight, Rabbi.
Yeah, like
a philosophical discussion.
No, this is not philosophical, but a lecture was very interesting, very, very.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Have a good night. Go sleep, everybody. Start.